Hey everybody, welcome back. I know I might be sounding like a broken record, but I am truly grateful that you're taking the time to either watch or listen to these episodes. So thank you. And with that, as always, I do hope that you're finding benefit in these and that the information that I'm providing is of use to you. With that, let's get into round 18 of the tactical transition tips. This time, for my close range group, those of you who are looking at transition right away to maybe a year out, improve your writing. And for the medium range group, those of you that are transitioning probably about 5 years from now, evaluate and confirm that your skills are actually transferable to the civilian world. Long range group, those of you who've got at least a decade in front of you, maybe you're just starting your career, develop a career plan.
When you transition out is try to model all of the good things, the discipline, the structure, that little bit of rigidity into your everyday life. And I think that that's a great way to make that transition happen, man.
Figuring out who you are, not what you did. It's not who you are. It's a piece, but it's not the whole you.
Take the time to invest in yourself because it means everything. That's what the difference is. The difference is not just to collect a check. It's to live 25 years, 30, 40 years after you retire and pay it forward that way.
My close range group, you need to become a better writer. These careers that we've chosen, they don't make us good writers. Most of the stuff that we write, especially in our business settings, they're brief, they're concise, they're rather informal. Many of us, myself included, coming up in the first responder community, one of the things that we were told very early on in our career, keep it simple, stupid, avoid the fluff, avoid the unnecessary. And so we tend to become writers who are very brief, very succinct, very to the point. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but that style of writing isn't conducive to us being, what's the word I want to use? Engaging on the civilian side. You have to understand that when you make that transition over to the civilian side, you're writing to a much more diverse audience. You are going to be writing to people who know nothing about the experiences that we have. And I'm not saying that in the sense that we're better or what we've experienced gives us some sort of clout. What I'm saying is that the way we tend to engage with each other, the way we tend to present information doesn't always come off, and I'll use the term touchy-feely or empathetic. So you have to understand that the people receiving your written documentation when you make that transition are also going to want to feel engaged at a little bit more of a personal level. I'm not saying that you have to write like a children's, like a Dr. Seuss book. But at the same token, I'm also not saying that you need to write, like, God, I'm drawing a total blank right now. Mark Twain or somebody of that, but just finding a little bit better medium or middle ground. When you're in a position, when you make the transition over, you need to also understand who is your target audience for that given document, that email, because if you're talking up the chain within your corporation, you might need to be more impressive in that you're trying to sell a concept to your higher ups that you want their buy-in on. At the same token, sometimes you're going to be writing a document that's going to be read below you or down to subordinates or people that you're working with that are in other duties or assignments within the organization. And for the most part, they're not going to want the straight in your face, my way or the highway, or this is how it's done kind of feel in what you write. So really kind of think about being a little bit more, I'll say, gentle in your writing. Now, you may not be able to fully adopt that style right now while you're still with the current organization, but be mindful of this and start practicing it. And also see if there's a way that you might be able to tone your current writing down a little bit. Now, obviously, if your peers or your superiors give you not bust your chops kind of feedback, but that the way, if you try to change how you write something now and it comes across less professional or less like what is normal, then you can only do so much. But start trying to practice on making your writing today a little bit more engaging, a little bit more friendly. Start if you can, and this is a big one for us while we're still employed, is try to get rid of using the jargon and the speak that we normally incorporate into our writing, because it just doesn't translate well. If you're using acronyms and jargon, that's going to completely go over people's head outside of this environment. So if you can start learning to avoid using that or limit how you use it, better off. If you can, change your writing style so that, and I'll just be blunt here, sometimes we tend to blast our own. If somebody does something that we don't like or we think is done inappropriately or is just plain dumb, sometimes we have the habit of not phrasing it in the most professional way. So be mindful of how harsh you actually might be in what you write. Yeah, being direct and to the point is great in an environment where it's welcomed and it's not looked at negatively. But when you make the transition over to the civilian world, I guarantee you that if you start trying to write in a more assertive, in your face, kind of mentality or method to your writing, it's not going to be received well. You're going to alienate a lot of people who are going to be reading your documents. Some ways that you can improve now, if you're not somebody who currently reads, start reading more books. The more you read, the more you start subconsciously registering what a proper sentence reads like, what a message of how it's conveyed starts impacting you, and then in turn, how you might be able to utilize that same kind of manner to present your message going forward. Again, I'm not saying you need to become some author type deal where it's, you're writing a book, it was a dark, stormy night. That's not what I'm saying. It's just the method of writing that conveys an engaging message as opposed to a very harsh, impersonal message. Another thing you want to do is, and I highly recommend this, ask for help. If you know that writing is definitely not your strong suit, then get some help. Don't think that you're going to be able to muddle through this and it's miraculously going to improve. It's not. It's not going to improve unless you get proper guidance and take proper steps to practice and try to improve your writing. How this is going to carry over to when you're looking to get your next job. First and most important, what you have or what you write is going to be a representation of you before you ever walk through the door. So if there's some sort of written component, even as much as a cover letter for a job, understand that your written product is going to be something that somebody is going to evaluate you before they even meet you, before they even get to your resume, before any other process. That cover letter is going to be, I refer to it as the business card that you don't have control of it, how it gets handed out. And what I mean by that is, if you just fire and forget and think, oh, I just did my cover letter, maybe you're scrambling at 10 o'clock at night to get a job application submitted. If you don't take the time to write well, it's going to be a representation of you before you ever even start the process. So that should be your first order of business, is making sure that you're always presenting the best image of you in every aspect that you can. In conjunction with that, your ability to convey your skills and your abilities starts with your resume, starts with your cover letter. It's how you put into words who you are, what you've done, and what you bring to a given employer. Again, how does that represent you? Are they looking at this and going, this looks like a third grader wrote it? Or are they looking at it and going, wow, there's a whole lot of really big words that don't really seem to go together, like you're trying too hard? So understand that that first impression sometimes will be what you write, not necessarily you walking through the door. In conjunction with that, if you know that you write well, and you don't have to be the best writer, but understand that if you write just a little bit better than the next guy, that's going to give you more confidence when you do go into that hiring process. Because one, the more you improve your written word, it actually improves your spoken word, because your ability to formulate ideas and put them down on paper in a manner that is engaging, easy to read, and clearly explains what you're trying to get to or what message you're trying to get across, that same process will carry over to when you're sitting across the table and you're having a conversation with somebody, and your ability to formulate a clear and concise answer to their question. So it does have a dual benefit to you. You present a better written product, which presents a better image of you. But then in turn, when it comes time to actually sit down and talk to somebody, it helps you formulate your path to how you're going to answer their questions. If you can get into a better habit of explaining yourself better, explaining yourself with a little more detail without it being fluff or where it's clearly obvious that you're trying to upsell the message you're trying to get across, but simply, let's say you're in a position at your next employer and you need to get something, a piece of equipment, training for you or for a subordinate, whatever it is. You need to be able to sell the importance of the necessity for that without it sounding disingenuous and fake or not really coming across professionally. So you got to be able to sell the merits of it. You also have to show that you looked at other aspects and say, well, I also evaluated A, B, or C, but this is why we need this piece of equipment. So being able to sell your idea to those that are above you is very important. And oftentimes that's done in written format, whether it be an actual business memo, whether it be a project, a professional project. You might be tasked with, hey, evaluate 3 pieces of equipment and tell us which one is the best one for the company and why. And it might not necessarily be, well, the best one is the most expensive or the best one is the least expensive. You want to explain how you came to the decision that this item is the best one for the company. On the flip side, if you're writing to your subordinates or you're writing to a coworker in a different unit, you need to get their buy-in on why maybe a new procedure or changing a procedure benefits not only your unit, your team, or you, but it benefits them and the organization. And that comes from being able to explain yourself and write well. At the bare minimum, we always will come to the table with inherent leadership skills. Even if we aren't necessarily right away in a leadership role, we already bring a sense of leadership from what we've done in our careers to our next job. So you want to present yourself as a leader, whether or not you've achieved the role of a leadership position. And what I mean by that is we've all worked with people who, when they write something, when they write that memo, when they write that email, it comes across so poorly from the get-go that we kind of mentally shut down. And I'm sure all of us have been in a situation where we didn't read the whole thing. Maybe it was too difficult to read. Maybe it was too wordy, verbose, however you want to refer to it. But you could tell that the person was writing a lot of words to make it sound bigger than what it really was. And you just kind of immediately are turned off when you start reading it. And what ends up happening is you don't read all of the details. And then unfortunately, a day later, a couple weeks later, whatever it is, somebody goes, well, didn't you read the memo or the email or whatever? And you missed the meat and potatoes because you couldn't get past the salad, if I'm using an eating analogy. So think about how you come across in your role as a leader or as an unofficial leader, and how do you engage those that are going to be reading what you're writing to get buy-in from them. If you're going to, I would highly recommend, and I've got no connection to this. This isn't anything where I'm sponsored by them or anything like that. I've used Grammarly for quite a while. It's a great tool. You can load it on your computer so that it not only checks your emails, it checks the papers that you're writing. Something like that might be a huge benefit to you to help you present yourself much better. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to go into the hiring process when you're ready to make your transition, and you need to be able to sell yourself both from a written standpoint and a verbal standpoint. And the better you are at writing, the better you'll be at explaining or talking. The better you improve your writing now, the more confidence you'll have when you go into that process, and maybe give you that little bit of a bump over the next person who's got the exact same skill set as you, but they just don't write as well. So challenge yourself to get better at writing. Seek help if you need it. For the medium range group, you need to honestly evaluate, do your current skills transfer to the civilian world? Do they transfer to where you want to end up? Whatever job you have in your mind, do your skill set provide you a benefit, and more importantly, a step up over the next person? why this is important is because you need to ensure that where you're focusing your attention on where you want to get to is viable. I go back to, yes, there are cool things that these jobs allow us to do. They're fun. I get it. And I'm not saying don't have fun. And if you're in that medium range group, you're probably closing in on the end of your career anyway. So maybe it is time to kind of step off the 100-mile-an-hour train and start better preparing for your transition. And with that, do an honest assessment of what are your skill sets and what are the jobs that are most viable to that skill set. If by chance, let's say, I'll use the example from the first responder community, you're a traffic officer and your skill set is accident reconstruction, but you have no interest in going into the civilian world and doing accident reconstruction for insurance companies, well, then where else is that skill set viable? Now, obviously, it's too late in your career to completely change, but just understand that what you've thought was fun for the last 10, 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is, may not be what is most beneficial to you when you transition. So, with that, even if your current skill set doesn't necessarily transition, maybe there's no jobs that I'll go back to the military or even somebody who's worked SWAT. Say you were a breacher for 15 years. Besides the TBI, what are you taking into your next job? There's not many jobs out there that need the skill set of blowing a door open. It is what it is. So with that, combined with where you want to end up geographically, can you create your own market? Can you create a training environment where you can teach others this skill set? Or is where you want to end up already saturated with companies that are offering similar training? So now you have to pivot and say, okay, how can I deviate? How can I offer something that's different than what everybody else is offering? But that's a way of looking at your current skill set and understanding that it has a very limited scope of usefulness in the civilian world and maybe making your own market. In conjunction, though, say you take your current skill set and you look at jobs you want, they may not match up exactly in the way they're worded, but if you can explain how your given skill mirrors the other needed skill, but it just doesn't have the same word, then you're ahead of the game. But you can't do that unless you honestly look at what you bring to the table and how it can be morphed or mirrored or maybe modified a little bit to meet the needs of whatever position you're going for. There are some websites, and again, I've got no affiliation with any of these. They're just some that I've found. But there's one that's called Clifton Strengths. There's another one which is Career Scope, which is through the Veterans Department. And there's another one called Skill Scan. All of these basically are an assessment tool that you can go in, put in your skills, your likes, your dislikes, and will help you identify jobs that you are qualified for or that you may not be qualified for. Something for you to use to kind of help guide you. Are you in the right path to get to where you want to go? If you're not there, then you've got a few years. You go out, get the additional training and hopefully experience to better round yourself out and make you more marketable for the job that you want. Don't rest on the fact of, well, I've done X for the last 20 years and you should just hire me. Yeah, you've got a lot of experience And for the most part, a lot of it will naturally carry over. But when you get into the specific skill set, if you're missing some major ones, let's say a position needs 5 primary skill sets, whatever they are. If you don't have the greater majority of them, if you've got one, but you don't have the other 4, and what's coming to mind right off the top of my head is like data analytics. You might understand interpreting data, but if you don't understand how to input it and get it out of the system, then you're really kind of not functional for a company that needs you to not only process, but get out of the system what needs to be analyzed. And that's a very overgeneralized example. But what I'm getting at is review what job you want, review the skills that are required, and do your skills match that? If not, then use this time to try to get the needed training and experience, or really start talking to people who are doing that job and see if there's something that you're currently doing that maybe you're just not catching on that actually is transferable, that directly relates to the mandatory requirements for that position. The 3 websites that I referred to, I'll put those links in the notes so you can go find them and do your own self-assessment. How this translates to you finding a job, most important, you need to know what jobs to apply for. If you have kind of a misguided or you're not clear where you want to get to, you're going to be spinning your wheels. You need to know that the jobs that you're going in for, you are a viable candidate for. You need to have the confidence in yourself to know that you bring the necessary skills to the table to make a company want to hire you. It is quite frustrating, especially if you're scrambling to find a job, to meet with rejections. Hey, you don't meet the skill set. And in your mind, you might have thought that you did until you actually get into it and realize, maybe I'm missing some of the key pieces to that puzzle. On the flip side, you have to think about what image you're presenting to a potential employer. Are they looking at you of like, he or she is just wasting our time? They didn't even check the majority of the necessary boxes. They thought they were qualified. They thought that they could just make it appear that they're able to do this job, but really they didn't even really take the time to look at themselves and look at this job. So are you basically wasting a potential employer's time? So it's twofold. You don't want to deal with the rejection, and they don't basically want you wasting their time. If there's a specific job that you want, you have to know, do the skills you have translate to it? If not, do the skills that you have, can they be adapted to it? You won't know that until you look at the job description and look at your skill set and match them up. Don't do that a day before you're trying to get hired. Start looking at that today. Start guiding yourself towards the specific job you want and get the necessary pieces of the puzzle that you might be missing. Does the skills you bring to the table, do they make you scalable? Are you going to potentially get an entry-level job based on a limited amount of skill set with no growth potential because you don't have anything beyond the minimum skill set? Or do you go in at an entry level knowing that, one, you're learning a new environment? You have to be the new guy again. That is fine. But also, do you know that, this is step 1, but I'm clearly able to move up to step 2, step 3, step 4, whatever it is, within this organization. So are you an asset to them in that, hey, we'll start you out now at a lower level. We'll see how you do in this environment. We'll see how you are as an employee. But then we know that because of all the other skills that you have, we'll be able to move you up. So do you want to be stagnant or do you want to be scalable? If you're merely looking for, and not underselling this at all, if you're merely looking for the Home Depot job, well, basically they just want to know that, are you going to show up to work on time? Can you work with others and can you do as you're told? All of us come from a career where those are key elements of our jobs. Yes. But if you want to do more, then what skills are you bringing to that company that makes you more employable, makes you a better candidate than the next person waiting in the lobby to interview for that same position? By improving yourself, by constantly evaluating your skill set, it also shows to a potential employer that you're broad-minded. You're not narrow-focused in the sense that this is all that I have and take it or leave it, this is me. As opposed to when you're sitting down to talk to them, or they can even see through your resume how you built out your skill set to make you more rounded. It shows that you have motivation. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody that is not going to need to be pushed along. They want somebody who sees where their weaknesses are and they make steps to improve upon themselves. So go back to, do you want to remain stagnant or do you want to be continually moving forward? And do you want to be continually moving forward because you want to improve yourself and you want to make the organization better? Or do you constantly have to be pushed along? More than likely, I hate to say this, if you're somebody who has to be pushed along, you're probably going to have big gaps in your skill set because you haven't pushed yourself to learn and get as much knowledge from these jobs as possible. Closing this part out, it shows that you have integrity. And what I mean by that is, if you go in and to whatever job it is, the type of job's irrelevant. You're sitting across the table, you're in the interview process, whatever it is, and you don't have the skill set or you don't have the necessary experience to get the job, it basically shows the employer that you don't take yourself seriously. You don't value yourself and the importance of this job. You think that potentially just because of your prior service, you might be entitled to this job. And that may not be the truth, but you have to understand, what is the impression that you're giving? And does it show that you are the most honest, have integrity, and care about the image that you present? So think about that. Do an honest evaluation of your skill set. See if it translates to the job that you want. If it doesn't, do you have the ability to either create your own market based on your skill set, or do you have to gain additional skills and experience to make yourself more viable for the job that you want? For the long range group, develop a career plan. And what I mean by that is it's twofold. Develop one plan right now that is an example or an idea for what is success for you now, today, this job. At the same time, what is going to make you successful when you transition from this job? So it's a two-part plan. Obviously, you need to be thinking about what you're going to do when you leave this career. Unfortunately, your plan might not be, or might happen before you plan it. What I mean by that is, you might be saying to yourself, I'm just starting my career. I've got 15 years to go. I'm not even going to think about what I'm going to do afterwards. But unfortunately, we all know people in these careers who had tomorrow happen literally tomorrow. So work on your career plan now. Identify what is success for you in your current organization. And in conjunction with that, develop a plan that makes you the most marketable, that makes you best prepared for walking away from this career. I would say that by developing a plan for success today and tomorrow, gives your career a sense of purpose. It gives you something to aim for. You need to set, it's like training for a race. It's like getting in the gym and trying to increase your squat or your bench or whatever it is. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens by having a purposeful plan. But not only do you want to set the goal of, okay, I want to improve my squat. That's going to have a benefit today, but the benefit 10, 15 years from now, assuming that you don't get injured, is you're going to age better physically because your body is going to stay strong. The old adage is, we don't stop lifting because we get old because we stop lifting. And where I'm going with that is, you set your goal for today, but that goal today has ancillary benefits tomorrow. With that, though, you need to not be, well, and I'm gonna temper this. I say go into a plan for your career that is as wide focused as you can make it while still being able to do as much as you want to do. You're not going to be able to do every single job that is within our organizations. It's just not feasible. Even if you could bounce between multiples, you'll never get good at any one of them because you do need to spend some time in a given assignment to actually develop a core competency with that position. So try to keep your focus as wide as possible while still staying narrowly focused on what you want to do today. Have that fun today. Do those things that you want to do that have motivated you to this point. Just understand, maybe 5 years from now, it might be time to think of something else. Or how can you continue to grow while staying on that path? I use this word a lot. Just don't stagnate yourself. Always be looking to improve. If you get to where you want to go and you master that position, what can you do to improve it? Is it completely stepping off the X and doing something completely different? Or is it developing an even more advanced skill set within that position? Whatever it is, your career plan and having those goals, once you achieve goal number 1, reevaluate. Where are you at that point in your career? Has your life changed? Has your opportunities changed? Set new goals. The one thing you'll be surprised is if you try to look too far ahead, it's going to be like eating, the old adage, eating the entire pie. The best way to do it is eat it one bite at a time. Set small goals that are easier to achieve and that they're easier to visualize and actually see. Once you hit those goals, reevaluate. Don't think that your plan that you set today is what is in concrete and it can't ever change, because there are so many other factors that might impact your decision tomorrow. Whatever tomorrow is, you hit that goal, maybe your life is different. Maybe now you're married. Maybe now you have kids. Maybe now you're divorced. There could be other factors that might cause you to move laterally and then move forward again. So reevaluate your career based on your achievable goals that are out in front of you, but not so far out front that they don't, you almost lose the perspective of actually getting to them because they might seem like they're too far away. Be accountable to your goals. If you take the time to set them, then achieve them. And if you find that they're not achievable, not because you're not giving the effort, but maybe you're lacking in a skill set, maybe you're lacking in a knowledge set, then don't give up the goal. go get the training and experience that you need to get to that goal. And if you want to get to that goal and it's just not happening, you're getting passed over, somebody else is getting the assignment, whatever it is, do an honest evaluation and make sure that you're doing everything you can to make yourself the best choice for that. I've been at points in my career where I thought I was doing everything right. And our ego is the worst thing we can have because we fail to look at ourselves. And when something doesn't go our way, it's easy to blame the people we're working with, the people that within our organization, and it's favoritism. It's, so-and-so is liked more. That might be, but take away all of that by being the best you can be as far as your preparation for that given assignment. And don't let it come down to the perception that somebody got it because they're friends. It might happen. I'm not saying it doesn't, but what I'm saying is make yourself as best that you can be so that you basically make it impossible for them to say no, is the easiest way for me to put it. And that comes with defining your career, define what's success to you, not anybody else. Define what's success to you and set the goals and achieve those goals. Get yourself a mentor. Get yourself, even if it's somebody that's not achieved what you want to achieve, but they're driven in their own way, and they're going to hold you to the necessary accountability and drive to get to your goal. And they're going to champion you and be a good cheerleader for, hey, are you doing everything you need to do? You need those people that are going to encourage you, because it's real easy for us to be crabs in the bucket and somebody starts moving up and improving themselves, and those that are down below, those that don't necessarily want to push themselves, they're going to glom on and try to pull you back down. What you need are people around you saying, all right, what's your goal? Are you getting there? Using the gym analogy. Did you get in the gym today? Did you get in the gym yesterday? It's holding your feet to the fire and making sure that you're continuing to move forward to achieve those goals. Where this prepares you for your transition down the road, and hopefully it goes according to plan, is most important. As much as it benefits your career now, it sets you up and you have a plan for your tomorrow. And hopefully what it is if you have a clear idea of where you want to get to, you're making the steps today to put yourself in the right place and the right training and the right experience to make you the most marketable for tomorrow. But with that, by growing in your career, that makes you marketable. By constantly trying to improve yourself makes you a better candidate when you walk in the door for your next job. Because you can sell yourself. Well, I'll take this a step back. Your resume is going to sell yourself when you show all of your accomplishments, and it's going to be clearly apparent that you are constantly trying to improve yourself. I would say that if you could put it in your head of don't be the same tomorrow as you are today. You should be incrementally better, and tomorrow is kind of a euphemism, but down the road, a year from now, you should be in a different spot in your career. Even if you're in the same assignment, are you in more of a team leader role? Are you taking on more responsibility? Are you doing as much as you can? You're still doing the same job. You're still doing the same assignment, but are you taking on more responsibility, improving yourself constantly? That motivation that you develop now inherently is going to carry over when you transition away from this job, because it's going to become so second nature for you now to constantly push yourself and try to improve, that's what's going to become your identity. And when you go into the next job, whatever it is, a company is not only going to see that, but you're going to be able to sell that. And that motivation, that drive to improve is going to be infectious. A company is going to want that because they're going to want you around the other employees of that company because you're going to lead by example. You're going to be somebody who's not satisfied with the status quo. You're constantly looking to move forward. So challenge yourself. Set your goals now. Develop that career plan. Move towards those goals. And don't let yourself falter by simply quitting on those goals. Now, there may be a goal that is not achievable. You might want to be on SWAT. You might want to be in some sort of special operations or special team or whatever it is. And not everybody makes it for a variety of reasons. All I can say with that is if that's your goal, do everything in your power to achieve that goal. If you know that you gave 100%, there's no excuses, there's nothing more that you could have done, hold your head up high and say, hey, I gave it a shot, I didn't make it, I'm moving on. But don't make it where you didn't achieve a goal because of, well, I could have done this a little bit better. I could have taken that class on my own. I could have read this manual, whatever it is. Don't leave anything on the table that can be in your, at least in your mind, something that you fall back on as an excuse. You should fall back and say, man, I gave it everything I had. There was nothing more I could have done. It just didn't happen. And that is actually something that should give you confidence because you understand that you didn't hold back anything. But it comes back to that motivation. That motivation to constantly push yourself is going to benefit you not only now, but it's going to benefit you when you make your transition. I'll close this out by saying, have fun. Do everything that you can now that is fun, that is appealing to you. Just understand some of the fun things that we can do don't have a use when we transition away from these careers. So be mindful of that. And be mindful that maybe you might have a shelf life for whatever that fun assignment is. Go do it for a couple of years, but understand that you might need to be the one to step away from it. I'm just saying. So in closing this episode up, close range group, you've got to write better. Even if you think that you write well now, get somebody else's opinion to validate it. And if you're good to go, you're good to go. But if you're not, work on it because you need to be able to set yourself apart from the other people that are going to be applying for that same job. And guess what? If you write well, you set yourself apart before you even walk in the room. You set yourself apart from them before they ever walk in the room. So think about that as far as your writing. For my medium range group, evaluate your skills that you have right now. Do they transfer over to the civilian world? If they don't, then find a way to either gain more skills or make yourself your own market. If you really love what you're doing and what the skills that you have are what you really want to stick with. But most importantly, understand that you don't want to waste your time applying for a job that you're not qualified for because you're wasting your time and you're wasting that employer's time. Last, for the long range group, develop a career plan. Develop something that helps you set goals for what you deem is a successful career today and that carries you over to when it comes time to transition. I appreciate you taking the time I appreciate you taking the time to listen and watch these episodes. Please let me know what I can cover to help you more, and I will catch you on the next one.